This poor girl, she had her whole life in front of her. I took that from her.
Theodore Wafer takes the stand in his own murder trial, getting emotional as he describes the night he shot and killed 19-year-old Renisha McBride on his front porch. Wafer says he shot her out of fear, believing she was trying to break into his Dearborn Heights home.
It's the first time we're hearing from Wafer himself about the shooting. Fox News' Charlie Langton live now in the newsroom with more on today's testimony. Charlie.
I'll tell you what an emotional day in court. Theodore Wafer takes the stand. We all predicted he would have to take the stand in order to make the case, somehow justifying why he shot the 19-year-old Renisha McBride on his front porch. Summarize the testimony real quickly, though. He bought a gun back in 2008. He said he needed it for extra security. And then on the night of the shooting, he heard pounding noise. He was afraid. He looked for his cell phone. He wanted to call someone, couldn't find the cell phone, and then he had to get his gun. He had forgotten that he had loaded the gun, and yet he opened the door to see what was going on, and that's when he shot Renisha McBride. Here is a summary of the testimony today.
And when you shot that shotgun, Ted, were you afraid for your life?
Yes.
And did you think that danger was just about to get you?
Yes. Can't explain that. You know, when I went to sleep that evening, I didn't expect I'd have to fight for my life and end up shooting and killing someone. It's the first thing that came out.
Today, in front of this jury, why did you pull the trigger?
To protect, to save myself, to defend myself. It was them or me at that moment.
Wow. I'll tell you what, I've been through a lot of cases in my days, but I'll tell you what, this was one of the most emotional testimony days that I think I've ever seen. The issue is, do you believe him? Did he make the case enough to get that jury to say not guilty, justified homicide, or maybe some mitigation? We'll have to see. Huel?
Charlie, there are reports that at least one juror was crying when she heard Wafer testifying today. But, of course, testimony is about more than just what was said, but how it was said. Was Wafer's testimony powerful? Was it effective?
Well, I have to think it was. It just didn't seem rehearsed to me. Sometimes you get these defendants on the stand. It's rare, number one, to have a defendant on the stand. But when they do, they seem rehearsed. Or even in civil cases where the plaintiff always takes the stand, people can testify, and you just don't believe them. But in this case, I believed this guy. I believed he was afraid. And I'll tell you the most powerful testimony I think I've ever heard, certainly in this case, when he said, that poor girl, she had her whole life in front of her, and I took that from her. I mean, what do you say to that? If you're on the jury, you're thinking two things. Do I believe it? I say yes. Number two, do I believe he was in fear? Quite possibly. And is it murder? No. The jury and the defense attorney could argue for at least a manslaughter, which is a lesser charge, and certainly I think the defense certainly has a shot at it. Tomorrow we'll get some cross-examination by the prosecution, and we'll see what happens. But an amazingly strong day and a very, very sad day in this very tragic case today for Ted Wafer and the family of Renisha McBride.
But Charlie, before you go, if you're afraid for your life, why do you even open the front door?
That's the question that the prosecutor's going to say. But throw out the obvious. Look to the emotion. Do we believe Ted Wafer? All juries, I don't care what case it is, in a criminal case, want to hear from the defendant. Very rarely do they. And when they do, the eyes are glued on the defendant. And they're only thinking one thing. Do I believe this person? Do I believe the cops got it wrong? Do I believe that we're going through this entire trial because this guy is a murderer? You be the judge. Was Ted Wafer a murderer? I don't know.
The jury will soon decide. Charlie, thank you.